Hello and welcome to Pro Trader Strategies Market Commentary for Tuesday, January the 21st. I'm Eric Wilkinson, and yes, you very well may recognize me as the Wolfman from mainstream media, where I've talked about everything from economic to geopolitical and market analysis. In these market commentaries, I'm going to talk about the economic data, how I see that impacting these markets, and then come up with some option strategies that we can implement into our portfolio in order to increase that yield. That is really the only way to increase yield in your portfolio is by using options. So that's what we're going to talk about. But please remember, past performance of any trading system or methodology is not necessarily indicative of future results. Ultimately, we're here to teach you how to do this, not really do it for you. So keep that in mind as well. Also, let's get on with some economic data across the pond. We got nothing really out of it on Monday. There was a couple of little economic data points like German PPI, but it wasn't the most important one to look at. It came in slightly higher than expected. We had our bank holiday for Martin Luther King. And then here in the United States today, we have some economic data that isn't really impacting the market. The thing that's really impacting the market today is this coronavirus that is happening in China, and they're coming into a big holiday season, or a holiday coming up very shortly. That is going to really affect a lot of these stocks because they found that it is actually transferable from human to human, and that is really waning on the market is what I think is the major driver of the equities being in negative territory right now. All right, so let's talk about the overall markets then. Without further ado, we've got crude oil right now just slightly off after rallying up and blasting above, actually going up and testing the value area high here in the market. We blew through the top there, created a little bit of a bottom, but market really starting to roll back over right now, back into a relatively safe zone for the economic landscape that we're seeing right now. Big, huge range though of $4 or so today, or four handles anyway, testing that 60 and almost testing the $56 at one point. So big range today in crude oil. We've got gold coming off a little bit. This is a bit surprising, as one would expect to see a little bit more of a lift in gold as people are coming out of the equities. This would be a safe haven asset in a sense, but we're not really seeing a push higher there. Now bonds are moving higher, up a point on the day, right back into that sweet spot that we've been talking about, somewhere between 58, actually like the 160 handle and 157 is really the kind of area I believe that the market's going to kind of flux back and forth between, but right in the middle there is that 158 handle, and lining up with this volume node that we have. You can see this volume node really starting to build out here. I believe we're going to see a shift in the point of control back up to this level here in at least the next several weeks. So I think we're going to see a trending sideways pattern here in bonds, and we'll see that paradigm shift higher. Now, VIX is still in positive territory, but you can see that this looks like a big red candle overhanging the market, and that's because the market really started out with this coronavirus waning on it, and we're starting to see some of these stocks that were really driving the market down have a bit of a recovery, as I think it was a little bit over exaggerated at the beginning of the move. I'll show you some charts of that here pretty soon. Dow Jones Industrial Average down about 43 points. It was down over 100 points earlier this morning on the open, so you can see that this candle is green because we opened and then rallied since then. Now, something to keep in mind that when we talked about on Friday is that a lot of the markets had some setups that made it look like we are creating a topping pattern. A settlement right here would actually start to look like that the market has topped out a little bit, despite the fact that this candle is green. Here we go in the NASDAQ. We are on the highs of the day. As you can see here, we are creating all-time highs. This is during the day session. Something I talked about on Friday is that high was created overnight, and we were never able to encapsulate that during the day session. Well, we've erased that and created a new all-time high. As a matter of fact, trading on the highs of the day right now. So not seeing that topping pattern now in the NASDAQ. Something with this candle that we're looking at right now, you can see a lot of the market had sold off towards those lows, most of that having to do with that coronavirus. But now those guys are starting to recover, and we're starting to see the market create new all-time intraday highs. Now, the E-mini S&Ps hasn't been able to get to that point, but I do expect with the NASDAQ moving higher, the Dow Jones Industrial Average starting to make that move right now, we could easily see E-mini S&Ps print those highs as people kind of shrug off that news of the coronavirus as well. Here we go with the E-mini S&Ps on the day, up 2 points. This is a 30-minute chart. You can see overnight when we got that news of the coronavirus really got short, but coming into today, most of the institutional investors are starting to shrug that off and probably taking advantage of some of these stocks that really got beat up overnight. So we'll talk about it right now. Booking.com, which is kind of the old Priceline. Well, obviously, people aren't going to be traveling to China because of the worries in and around this coronavirus, and people traveling around China. They are a very gambling-centric kind of community. So those gambling companies like WYNN, Las Vegas Sands that have operations in Macau are going to probably be hurt. I think it's over exaggerated at this point, so I've got a couple of trades that I'm going to be looking at for that to debunk that a little bit. Booking.com I don't think is going to be impacted that much by this China virus or the coronavirus. Here you go. We can see with WYNN down about almost $7, but was well off of that. Came down basically looking to test this volume node right here. But we have seen nothing but really a rally since then to the highs of the day, and we're just off of those highs of the day right now. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here with the gambling casinos. Booking.com probably. I'm looking at a few of them. A lot of these, though, haven't had their earnings come out yet. So I wanted to find something that had earnings to create along and take advantage of this. So I went into Delta Airlines. You can see they are on the lows of the day. They just came out and beat earnings. I don't think that it is going to impact them that much, although they are a global transporter of humans. I don't think that the travel to China is going to be that much of an impact on their bottom line. You can see here, though, one of the nice things is we did cover this gap here. Yes, market is overextended, some would say, to the upside, as you can see with the market being above the point of control. But now that we've covered that gap, I am looking for a bit of a rebound here in Delta Airlines going forward. So I went into the options and played a synthetic long in here rather than going out there and just buying the stock and holding on to it. I'm not going to play this. I don't want to keep this in my portfolio for the next 10 years or so. I'm going to play this for a short term, buy the rumor, sell the fact kind of thing, or when there's blood in the water, that's time to go fishing in a sense. But what we're seeing here is market really on the lows. So I went into the June options and I bought the 160, I bought the 60 calls in there, sold the 60 puts, created 100 deltas, so I'm long 100 deltas. It's going to act just like this underlying, and I was able to do that for a 10-cent credit. That lowers my basis, all right? So my break even is at 159.90, so still about right around where we are right now. As a matter of fact, it was about 25 cents higher when I did this trade. Market continuing to slide a little bit. Well, if we start to see this market not really go in my direction, Thursday's webinar is going to be what we talk about with Delta and how we can continuously lower our basis on this trade by doing covered calls. I'm going to show you the right strike location, the right duration, all of the things that goes in and around this that we need to stay mechanical in our portfolio. It's the only way to really beat the street, if you will, or get better yield in our portfolio is by using covered calls and some other strategies that I'm going to be talking about in this particular course here. It is all about building a portfolio and how we stay mechanical with that to increase our yield using options. So check that out. It's going to be a really good one, and this could be the perfect candidate for doing covered calls going forward, because you can see it doesn't have that like paradigm shift that we're seeing in like Tesla and some other ones, maybe Google or Apple, where you get that hockey stick type of move. Delta has a tendency to kind of trudge along, if you will, and that's what we're going to be looking for with covered calls. So check it out. I'll show you how to get an extra synthetic dividend every month with using this strategy, and that's all I got for you, other than if you can't take that, take it easy.